Hi gamers, so second video in one day. This is Workshop and the D&D Hobbyist channel. This is a recap for my August session that we just finished like an hour and a half ago. So that went well. I have 4 out of my 5 players. So I had, I guess the oldest one would be Dayton. Dayton is playing Beauregard, human cleric of the Death Domain Jurgle. Next would be Connor. Connor's playing Uriel, half-elf rogue thief. The next would be Nick, who's not here. And then Gabe. Gabe is playing a half-orc barbarian, just totem warrior. And the new player, Alicia. So Alicia is playing a drow druid, Circle of Stars. So we just made her character this last week. I just met her last Saturday or Sunday. We went and had boba. So it was nice. Alicia is running at least one game online. She's played and run games before and was looking to get a little more dragons in her life. And I saw her post in LFG and hit her up. So very good. She came and seemed to have a pretty good time. We wrote a fairly elaborate backstory for her character because I don't know. I like the Forgotten Realms, and I like the kind of the stream of consciousness or the stream of research, happenstance, whatever. So I just kind of she wanted this this drow. Circle of Stars, and I had asked her about mentors or formative events or anything that she wanted to have happen prior to meeting up with the party in the jungles of Chult, and she didn't really have any. She had read like the Drizzt and stuff, so she knew a little bit of the Forgotten Realms, which is helpful. But it didn't really have a whole lot, so like I started writing, and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and like the Discord's just full. And I kind of did the same thing for Wayne, and the same thing for Tien, and the same thing pretty much for everybody. Like I kind of give them this huge backstory that just never really comes into play again. But like for me, like I don't know, it makes me, when I know a lot of information about a character, like I kind of feel like I know them. So her character was born with a drow name I don't remember, to a drow house that I don't remember, and they were like a low-ranking house, and she was a bit of an outcast, but she had a mentor who was like the master at arms kind of role. And she got to go on a raid to the surface as like a coming of age rite of passage, and got to see the stars and fell in love with the stars. And she was distracted, and for years she was pining for the stars and wanted to see the stars. And she basically set up a escape. So she stole I forget what the Pwifqua or whatever, the boots and cloak of Elvenkind that the drow have. So boots and cloak of Elvenkind, and a headwear of the matron mother, so like her mother or her grandmother or whatever, the matron of her house. And she stole this, and what I used for the template of that was Critical Role. There was one of the seasons of Critical Role. There was somebody who had, and it's like a crown with antlers, and it was +2 con, +2 wisdom. And I was like, man, that's crazy. All I really wanted was the wisdom, but or +2 charisma and +2 wisdom. But all I really wanted was the wisdom. But I mean, the charisma made a lot of sense for a matron mother to have a +2 to charisma. So I made it +2 charisma, +2 wisdom, and non-detection. So it has permanent non-detection on it. So you can't use divine magic on the wearer. Like, you just can't. So there's no scrying, there's no clairvoyance. Like, basically, she knew that she needed that in order to escape and not be immediately returned back to her family and murdered, whatever. Turned into a drider or whatever the drow do. So she got these things, and away she went. And so the headgear, instead of antlers, etc., which would be fitting for a druid, I made it fitting for a drow matron mother. So it is like a bejeweled spider sitting on the back with, you know, the body and whatever's in the back with these long arms, and it forms like a crown with this spider, and then there's a web of like really fine silver chains that kind of hang down like a veil. So like from back here it looks like a spider web. When you're wearing a cloak, you might see just like some jewelry chains hanging down. So that didn't work especially well once she got out, because she had to wear the cloak of elven kind up all the time so that people wouldn't see the the artifact headdress. And when she wore that, then she kind of went unnoticed altogether. So it was like when she was in around people, she needed to have the cloak down so she didn't draw attention to herself. But if she put the cloak down, she would draw even more attention to herself. So anyway, she escaped. She backtracked. She tried to get to the surface. She got lost. She used her druidic power to get direction from nature. Got into a big cavern. Got all the way to the surface. Like, slept under the stars. Blah, blah, blah. She eventually made her way to a river. Started heading north from the river. So I said she emerged from the Underdark in the far, far southeast of the Forgotten Realms of Toril, a place called Eastern Shar. So from the Eastern Shar, she was able to go north into Unthagard or whatever. It's where the Untheric pantheon was. So I was pushing her towards that. I'm reading about the region, and there's a city there called Thymar. So Thymar, during the spell plague, or during the spell after, I don't know, the other continent of the Forgotten Realms, Ebir, fragmented and crashed into Toril. So the city from the other continent in the distant past crashed into this Unther, and so there's this weird sort of city of Dragonborn. So it's Dragonborn and Tiefling. So I don't know what any of this stuff is. Maybe this is 4th edition. I totally skipped 4th edition. But I had her basically make it. She found a caravan ladies, Zorana and Tiefling, and Zorana talked endlessly, so her character didn't need to talk a whole lot. They got to Thymar, and they blended in. Basically, most of the Dragonborn didn't really care that she was drow, or didn't know what a drow even was. The population is Dragonborn with some tieflings, so there's very little going on here. It's a good place for refugees and people that are marginalized. So we had her living there. I said, she got in. The pantheon there, the Untheric pantheon, is, basically Egyptian gods. And Thymar is like a great big pyramid. It's like a black pyramid on a granite slab, and you go up, this whole thing. So basically, she got into with a guy there. She got invited to the Circle of Stars, which is like the I don't know, government supported organization of these basically the circle of the stars. Like it's guys, they track the movement of celestial bodies. They make the calendar for the year. They set the holidays. Like most of the holidays for that pantheon were related to celestial movement and either lunar stars or the moon. And she had a proclivity to that, and she met this guy there. And the guy, I don't know what race he was. I never really determined what race he was, but they said his name was Tillich. And Tillich was two extremes of the same on most things. So, like, he's like an enigma. So he invited her into the council, but never seemed to want her there. He taught her the secrets of the circle of stars, but it seemed like he was always like hiding information and not sharing information with her. He seemed like a nurturing grandfather, a harsh teacher, and a thirsty suitor. He was a little bit of most diametrically oppositional personalities or traits. So she studied with him for years. They lived in the city for years. At some point, he got cold to her, and then soon after, there were drow coming for her. The drow were not from her family. My headcanon is that her family was actually destroyed after she escaped because of the loss of the helm. The other families were able to scry on them without repercussions. So they spied on them and snuffed them out, and basically she caused the destruction of her whole family. Shh, don't tell her that. So she's afraid that they're coming for her, which any drow that know that she has this crown would come for her. So it made kind of sense. Like, it was easy for him to find a drow that does worship Loth and be like, hey, this guy, this refugee has artifact level obvious drow holy item. Maybe you want to come take it back and punish her. So for whatever reason, he was trying to get rid of her, so she took off. So we had said not long after she got there, because of the problem of the Cloak of Elvenkind, like when she had it on, she needed it off, and when she needed it, like she basically needed it on all the time. In order to have it on all the time, she needed it to have different effects. So she sold, not long after she got to Timar, to a traveling merchant. She sold the cloak and the boots of Elvenkind for a small fortune, and then she used those to buy a robe of stars and to live off of the money. So that's kind of how she survived. But she got a robe of stars, and circle of stars, she loved the stars, like it's her favorite item. But it's also obviously a very powerful magic item, so it gives her a +1 to saves, gives her magic missile, and it'll transport you to the astral plane. So these drow come for her. She runs in, barricades herself in a room, and basically draws herself into her robe so much that she enters another dimension. She wakes up in the astral plane, silvery void, no plants and animals. She's a druid. There's nothing here for her. She wanders, can't figure it out. She's very wise. She can get around fairly well. Like, she's a mental character. She didn't have a whole lot of trouble with that, but she did not like the astral plane. She didn't really encounter or interact with anybody else. And so, like we said, she did a lot of the times before when she was lost, she would commune with nature. She would meditate and basically draw on nature and ask for guidance. And she did that in the astral plane, and the astral plane basically delivered a color pool. And she went through the color pool and found herself with our party. So that's most of her backstory. There's a lot of stuff in there that I probably skipped over that isn't especially important. But she loved that stuff. She was, I don't know, it's like you can kind of feel what she's been through recently. Like she gets, like, being an outcast drow. Like that's a trope, that's been done. But now she has a lot of personal flair, and it explains, like, the two pretty powerful magic items that she has. Again, she's level 6. most of my people have, not most of them, half of my people have really powerful magic items. The other half don't so much. But they're all geared up pretty good. So the adventure picked up. They were almost to Needlebones, so we finished. They were doing an encounter with the Iblee, the stork folk. So the stork folk were leading them into a trap. So we did the basically, okay, we're gonna walk into the trap and then we're gonna kick their ass. So they walked into the trap and then they kicked all their ass. So they killed 3 stork folk and 10 zombies, and basically all the rest of the stork folk were afraid of them and took off. They fled. So they overcame that adventure. They got to the Needlebones. The Needlebones, it's a sinkhole with a dragon in the bottom of it. Basically, a huge mass of goblins trapped a green dragon. So a green dragon was layering in this sinkhole and had a secret compartment with treasure in it, and I assume a hoard. And what they did was they stocked the stinkhole with piranha, swarms of piranha, and they made like a big net. So whenever the green dragon came back and got in there, they threw the net over it, and it got attacked by piranha, and they threw spears and stuff at it, and there's hundreds of dead goblins everywhere. But in theory, yeah, they beat the dragon. So the party was scared of the water. They knew there was a problem. They were expecting a trap, and they basically just investigated and figured everything out. Eventually, the rogue got them into the secret passage, and it was like 1,000 gold piece worth of diamonds, a wand of fear, and like the rest was like money and stuff. So they got all of that. They split it with the guides that led them here to shut them up. They were they were just laying on the guilt, even though they knew there wasn't anything they could do, like to take the money away from the party. The party was like, "Here's 50 gold," and they were like, "But I bought the map, and it was all my family's money, and I kind of need some more." So they didn't really haggle, but they did talk the party into giving them some more loot. So the party did that. Then they went to Sabal. So Sabal is a monastery on the side of a cliff. So the party got there. And they basically flew up, or spider climbed up, or basically got up there. They parlayed with the Aarakocra that were up there. I've given the party a bunch of pictures of the Aarakocra from whenever they saved the Aarakocra that was a prisoner at Firefinger. I gave them several pictures of Aarakocra. So they're all like jungle themed. So like, the one in the module has kind of like a parrot face. So I gave them that picture from the module of the Aarakocra monster. I gave them another one looks like a cockatiel, and then another one looked like a different kind of parrot, and I gave them one that looks like a toucan. So it's like an Aarakocra with a toucan head, and then he's got like a toddler Aarakocra with a toucan head like on his shoulders, and they're both like, yeah. So I said, all these Aarakocra are basically like tropical jungle themed. So toucans and parrots and cockatiels and all of that sort of thing. Whatever. Pidgeys. I forget what they are. So they talked to them. They met the one that they had freed from Firefinger. He was glad to see them. We said that Eku knew these people, and so they went up. They went through the cleansing room. They did some cleansing rituals. They went into the monastery. They were eating at the monastery, and the leader came down. The teacher, Ashara, an old Aarakocra. She came down and was talking to them, and it kind of, that's when they started talking about the death curse, all right? And Steema, which is the drow druid, she knew nothing of the death curse, hasn't heard anything about any of this. So the party starts talking about the death curse and the soulmonger and all of this stuff, and she's like, holy cow, what is going on? What did I get myself into, you know? Ashara basically recommended that they go to Omu. That Omu is a cursed place. There's all of this evil in Omu, and Omu's probably where they can find some answers about this soulmonger. If there was evil that was threatening the entire world, Ashara would start looking for it in Omu. So they're like, okay, let's go to Omu. And then she kind of explained Omu a little bit, and again offered the ritual, the 7 winds or whatever. So this is the second time that they had heard of this ritual that will basically give the party fly. So if the party gets fly, they can get into Omu easier without having to deal with the gargoyles as much, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they'll get into aerial combat with the gargoyles. I haven't really got that far. So they want to get this ritual. The ritual requires a black orchid. The black orchid only grows in Nangalore. So before they got to Curse of Ball, they were camping at one of the nights. And they, Eku told them the story, was going to tell them the story of Omu, and they actually interrupted her and asked her to tell the story of Nangalore. So it really worked out. They told the story. She told the story of Nangalore, and then the Aarakocra told the story of Omu. And they got to meet the heirs of Omu that are staying at Curse of Ball and stuff. So now they know about Nangalore. They know about Curse of Ball, and like Nangalore is this queen or old leader from Omu that was cursed for wanting eternal beauty and is a Medusa and all this stuff. So they stayed there. They sent a message. This was so smart. They rested and sent a message, sending to not Sindra Sylvain, not the quest giver from Flan, the harper, but instead to her servant, the bald dwarf Talc, because they knew that Talc would still be alive. So they sent the message to Talc and asked Talc to tell Sindra and the merchant prince that they were at Curse of Ball and they were going to Omu. And they think that the soulmonger, there may be something in Omu. So if they don't return and they don't hear anything from them, maybe look in Omu. And Talc responded, I understand. I'll pass the message on. You can contact me anytime. So that was really cool. So they rested. They did all of that. They waited another day. They rested and refilled their spells. And then they went to Nangalore. So, right, we're ticking stuff off today. We're doing a lot of stuff. We're going places. So they go down to the River Orlung. They get into canoes. They go into Nangalore. They go up into Nangalore. There's crocodiles. They climb up. There's yellow musk creeper zombies and the creeper, and they kill the zombies and blight the creeper, and up the stairs and around, and eventually they get to the Medusa. And she's doped up, right? She's got all of her hallucinogenic plants, and she's like talking like somebody who's just really fucked up, somebody who's like out of their gourd. She's talking to her dead consort. She keeps going back and forth between present tense and past tense. She's accusatory and sultry and confused and all this stuff. So they started out and they wanted to try to trick her. And then while they were trying to trick her, they realized that didn't work as well. And they told her the truth. And she was very interested in helping them free Omu. She loves Omu. Omu is her home, right? So the fact that they need this to help Omu, help cleanse Omu, yeah, no problem. Just buy it. I'll sell it to you. No problem. When they started, they were like, oh, we need your help because we're on a quest to free a city. And she was like, what kind of city? And they're like, it's a city and it's surrounded by cliffs and and it's very dangerous. And she's like, that sounds like Omu. And they're like, no, it's not Omu. And she was like, it's surrounded by cliffs. It sounds a lot like Omu. It's very dangerous. And they were like, oh, it is dangerous, but it's not Omu. And she was like, I don't care about other cities. And they were like, oh, yeah, it is Omu. And she's like, which is it? You're double speaking, So basically they bought the Black Lotus for twice the value that she would have sold it at, because they didn't haggle very well. They were just like, this many? And she's like, okay. So she made out. She got a lot of gems, and they got the Black Lotus. So then they're like, okay, well, let's go back to Sabal, and we can do that. We can spend the night and rest up and whatever, and we'll do the ritual and go to Omu. So, sorry, it's been a long day. Then they were like, well, while we're here, we might as well go ahead and check out the rest of the gardens, right? So then they went and they found, petrified people and statues with their faces clawed off and like all this different stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, right. We don't want to piss her off or insult her in any way. She is still super terrifying and evil. And okay, let's just get out of here. So they went back to Cursaball, and they brought the last thing we did was the druid brought the black orchid up there and went into, they had a big atrium with a lot of plants and herbs and stuff, and she went up there and brought the orchid, and then she did like an 8-hour plant growth, like it's some long casting that a druid can do that will like double the bounty of everything. It like makes all the plants and everything healthy and robust and what have you. So her idea is that the black orchid, after we pick the flower and use it for the ritual, it should grow back 2 orchids, and now the monastery will have this orchid plant, and it can grow here. Maybe not. Maybe it will. I don't know. Nice idea. At the very least, they're going to have a lot of herbs and food and stuff that they grew here. Sure. Cool. So that's what we're doing. And then their next plan is to get the ritual and go to Omu. And Omu is the next chapter. So they're moving on into chapter 3, which is awesome. I don't know that there's really anything else that they'd like to do other than go to Omu. I know Eku would like to kill Nanny Poo Poo at Mambala. Could probably live without it. They were going to talk to the Oracle at Orlunga. Probably live without it. Maybe need to go there later and ask more specific questions or something. But right now, they pretty much beelined right for what they need, which is probably why multiple of the guides wanted to go this way, right? So they got 4 guides, and 2 of those 4 guides basically led them in this direction. They went to Firefinger and they went to Needlebones, which are basically a straight line to, Cursaball and Nangalore and Omu. So that's what happened. It went pretty well. Several moments of laughter. There were, we have 3 combats, maybe 3 full combats, not 4, not super pitched battles, not a lot of challenge or danger. I had more advanced combats planned and was never I kind of was skipping. I'm transitioning away from the hex crawl. Like I said, I have those 3 encounters. I'd like to use those, and if I don't get to use those, it's kind of a waste. But like I said, I want to move away from the hex crawls. The main that I had a encounter with like 5 whites. I thought they could take on 5 whites, and that would be a good combat. And then I had a Bodak, and I thought a Bodak would also be a good encounter. And I didn't really have a good point to put those in because we were a little bit rushed, trying to accomplish stuff and move everything along. So maybe next time, maybe not. Maybe we're just gonna go right into Omu, and I'll never have the chance to do any of this stuff. I don't know. We'll see. But everybody said they had a pretty good time. Everything seemed to go well. There wasn't a whole lot of stumbling and stuff. There were a couple points that I wish that I had prepared a little more. I actually woke up last night with anxiety about the level of prep that I had done. I had read through Curse of Sabal, but I hadn't really committed it to memory. I'd read through Nangalore, and I hadn't really committed it to memory. I hadn't really read much of Omu at all. I wasn't really prepared. I wasn't as prepared as I like to be. Like, that's the one thing about having a once a month game is you can really prepare for it. You can go over it and read it again and, copy it down and have your numbers ready and everything. So I'll have index cards, and I'll have sheets of paper with the hit points and AC and how much damage they do and what their damage, their bonuses to hit, and I'll just have it really prepared. And when I do that, it really flies and it really gels. And something about whenever you can, I don't know, it's when you're adept, like it seems like you're more expert about it. Like it's like it feels more dangerous. Like if you're like, okay, and roll initiative, and you flip a page and you've already got everything down there and you're ready to go, instead of like, here, let me write out this and let me do that and let me read this again, right? There's no pause and play, and everything's ready and you're just into it. It just feels different. Like it feels, I don't know, more dangerous. I don't want to say that. It just feels different. It feels like there's more at stake, or that it's more important. I don't know. It feels different. I can't really describe it. Maybe I need to think about it a little more. But it went okay. Nick called off sick, which again, we have COVID everywhere, so I'll have to check in with him and see how he's doing. I just found out that Rich in Kalamazoo, in my monthly Saturday game, he says, guess who has 2 thumbs and COVID? So so he just got COVID for the first time. Like I said, it's pretty bad up here. I just had it a month ago. So, yeah. Was that all I wanted to say? I think that's all I really wanted to say. Everything went pretty good. It was like a full day of gaming. I got my Saturday game next week. We're going to go again September. It's like September the 18th. So I will get these posted up, and I think that's all I really have. If you have any questions or comments, please post them. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Again, this is Workshop, your D&D Hobbyist buddy. And until next time, game on.